It's 2026, and the United States is turning 250 years old. In the long timeline of human history, a continuous self-governing republic surviving this long is an extreme statistical anomaly. Most ancient democracies collapsed long before reaching this mark. To understand how this experiment survived against the odds, we have to track the evolution of the American idea across 25 distinct decades. In the 1770s and 80s, the founders knew they were building on unstable ground. They obsessively studied the rise and fall of classical Greek and Roman societies, using ancient history as a life raft to avoid the pitfalls that doomed past republics. The result was the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. These documents were an attempt to build a society where people from completely different backgrounds were bound together by the rule of law, rather than tribal allegiance or military force. The true achievement of the founders was engineering a system of checks and balances that anticipated the flaws of human nature and actively guarded against the concentration of power. Moving into the 1800s and 1810s, that fragile constitutional framework needed physical security. The young nation doubled its size through the Louisiana Purchase and successfully defended its sovereignty against the British Empire during the War of 1812. This expansion secured what we can call agrarian space. The founders believed that for citizens to govern themselves, they needed vast, available land to cultivate independence and self-reliance. By the 1820s, the United States established the Monroe Doctrine, drawing a hard defensive perimeter around the Western Hemisphere to keep European empires away from this newly secured territory. With foreign threats pushed back, the classical blueprint was secure from the outside. Yet it now faced the immense, compounding internal pressure of its own explosive westward expansion. Through the 1830s and 40s, the character of the nation shifted. The classical education of the founders gave way to a rougher, populous frontier spirit, driven by the concept of manifest destiny. As the territory rapidly expanded, that relentless vitality collided directly with the republic's deepest moral contradiction: the institution of slavery. In the 1860s, the Civil War forced the ultimate bloody stress test of the Constitution. The Emancipation Proclamation and the heavy toll at the Battle of Gettysburg proved the system could be pushed to the absolute brink. The Republic survived its fracture, but the massive cost of hundreds of thousands of lives demonstrated that constitutional liberty sometimes requires violent defense against its own internal contradictions. Following the war, the nation swept through the Gilded Age. The U.S. economy exploded, fueled by mass innovation. With achievements like the Wright brothers' first flight at Kitty Hawk, this American can-do culture began outperforming the engineering achievements of ancient Rome. In the 1910s, the country was reluctantly pulled onto the global stage, entering World War I and taking on a new role in international conflicts. But early 20th century global victories masked deep economic vulnerabilities at home, culminating in the severe domestic crisis of the Great Depression throughout the 1930s. The nation recovered and mobilized for the 1940s and World War II. The industrial output required to win that conflict cemented America's permanent position as the primary defender of Western civilization. Within a single human lifespan, the United States transformed from an isolated agrarian frontier into the ultimate global hegemon. The post-war boom of the 1950s brought widespread prosperity, setting the stage for the profound and necessary cultural corrections of the 1960s civil rights movement. That decade closed with the 1969 moon landing, marking the moment the American technological and exploratory spirit reached the lunar surface. The momentum continued through the victory of the Cold War in the 1980s and the explosive internet boom of the 1990s, establishing a period of peak, unchallenged economic dominance. By the turn of the millennium, the American idea appeared completely triumphant. Yet, beneath the surface of that prosperity, deep civic vulnerabilities were quietly forming. Entering the 2000s, the September 11th attacks violently ruptured the post-Cold War peace and launched a global war on terror that would define a generation's foreign policy. By the 2010s, that intense external military focus began to give way to internal fracture. The country experienced deepening political polarization and a sharp decline in institutional trust. This internal tension climaxed in the 2020s. The massive disruptions of the COVID-19 pandemic and the January 6th Capitol attack expose the reality of a deeply divided society. Internal tribalism and the erosion of a shared civic identity have become more dangerous to the Republic than any foreign empire. This chart shows the massive disparity in material wealth today, with the United States boasting a $30 trillion economy that dwarfs other global powers. But the social trust and institutional stability required to sustain that wealth are showing signs of systemic fatigue. The 2026 semi-quincentennial serves as a diagnostic moment, a chance to evaluate the nation's health after 2.5 centuries of this experiment. The ultimate historical lesson is that no nation is immune to collapse, and survival depends entirely on active, conscious preservation by its people. The United States Constitution and the American spirit have proven to be incredibly resilient. But they will only endure if this generation chooses to understand, protect, and pass on the blueprint they inherited.